What happens when a bunch of knife nerds and ex-chefs try and do a scientific experiment? Let me tell you, it's not the most rigorous of peer-reviewed processes. Now, I actually have a PhD. It's not in science, it's in ethnomusicology, and somehow I got drafted to help with this. I'm not the one who makes the decisions about that around here. We did try and get some good data. We did get some data, not the data we were looking for. But, we've tried this before.
Hi, welcome back.
It's worth doing again because every time we do this, we get more information. And so last time we tried to do a charcoal experiment, there were some problems with the experiment. We had it all in one ceramic Conroe grill.
We're gonna do a little test here. We've got our handy dander. Sometime later, here in June.
Didn't have a long enough burn time to really see how long things would go for. There was a lot of cross-contamination of the heat from the different charcoals because they were all in the same grill, and we didn't even have an infrared meter. Well, this time we decided to control our variables, get as scientific as we could, and all of that control actually resulted in us not getting the information we were looking for. But we had a much tighter experiment. This time we had 4 Conroe grills. We had 4 types of charcoal. We each had their own charcoal chimney. They were being measured with infrared. We had heat guns. We did all the things. And what we were trying to figure out was how long these different types of charcoals burn for, how hot they burn, how long it takes them to get started, these sorts of things with real hard numbers attached to it. At the end of it, not to spoil the results, but what we found was that by controlling all of the variables and really sort of taking a hands-off approach and just letting the charcoal do its thing, that certain types of charcoal are easier to use than others is the result of the experiment. Not what we were looking for, but still valuable. When we started our experiment, we have our 4 charcoal chimneys on Iwatani cassette burners, which are a great way of starting charcoal. It makes it really easy. They're also great if you happen to have a wok or a donabe pot, but that's, an aside. We had them all set up. We started our stopwatches, started them all at the same time. We had no-name brand Briquette charcoal. We had Knifewear's own Ogatan, which is a pressed wood charcoal. Then we had Shirozumi, which is a eucalyptus style Binchotan. And then we had actual Japanese Binchotan made from white oak. They all started at the same time, but the results were quite different. So the no-name brand charcoal starts really easy and within 15 minutes was probably ready to go. But we had an experiment to run and we were gonna give these things half an hour each, whether it killed us or not. And it effectively killed the briquettes because by the time we had half an hour go by and the briquettes went into the Conroe, they were almost done. Whereas the Ogatan and the Shirozumi, they really needed that half hour for them to get going, to get nice and hot, to go red, and then to start to get to some white ash on the outside. The Tosa Binchotan is super dense, and we knew this. It was crackling and popping, and it was heating up, but at the end of half hour, it probably wasn't really ready to go into the Conroe, but we put it in anyway because these were the parameters that we set and we were gonna follow through and really see what having everything the same would do for us. Once we got them into the Conroe, like I said, the briquette was pretty much done. Like, I think that probably could have gone in, you could have started cooking within maybe 10 minutes, but it also burned out and the temperature was dropping off within 35 minutes or something. So that's not the kind of stuff that we sell. We sell the much denser Japanese style charcoals that really burn for a long time. The Ogatan turned out to be the real winner in this experiment because it did the best with the least amount of babying. And that's a good thing to know. If you're just getting into Conroe grilling, you're just getting into these kind of denser charcoals, Ogatan is very forgiving, it's easy to get started, and what we discovered was that it didn't really require much babying. Like, we just kind of stacked it up, it's all even-sized pieces anyway, and it just burned. We really didn't have to do much to it, so that's kind of set it and forget it. With the Shirozumi, it was definitely easier to get going than the Tosa, but the pieces are some different sizes. It's not as even as the Ogatan. So the little pieces got going really quickly and they helped to get the bigger pieces going, But what we should have been doing was moving it around a lot more to make sure that the bigger pieces are on top of the smaller pieces, that they're nestled together as the little pieces go out to bring the other pieces back together. And we weren't really doing that because we were trying to do this hands-off sort of thing, right? When we were taking temperatures on it, the Ogatan was definitely the most consistent, right? It got up to heat and it really held that heat. When we started cooking on it, when we started cooking with a pork leg and the fat was dripping down, the Ogatan got hotter. The Tosa in this experiment was a bit of a disappointment because we didn't have it in the chimney starter long enough, and so it wasn't really as hot as it should have been, and pieces were going out. And what I know from experience with customers, like there's a new yakitori restaurant opening down the road, and I know the chef who works there, Hakjin Kim. He is very particular. He's the kind of chef that you want making your sushi and you want making your yakitori because he accepts nothing less than the best. And when he came to us for charcoal, we were trying to show him some of these other ones. He's like, no, he only wants Tosa because although it is harder to work with and it takes longer to get going and you gotta move it around more and adjust it more, it, according to him, will give you the longest, most even, hottest burn time. And so for a professional restaurant, that's what he's looking for. I think the result of the Tosa Binchotan in our experiment was a bit disappointing. But we know also from other customers that when you do it the right way, it gives you overall probably the nicest results. So another customer came in recently, wanted to buy conro. He was looking at one of our just little Akachan conros, and he was looking at getting some Ogatan. But then he was talking to me about what he was really trying to achieve. He wanted to get the best possible sear, and he really wanted to be able to cook for a long time. And he's the kind of guy who likes carbon steel knives. He likes fussing with things. He likes maintaining and working and manipulating. He's not a very hands-off kind of cook, even though he's a home cook. And so I recommended to him he get the Tosa and that he put it in the oven first, which is a little hack you can use if you are using Tosa. He put it in the oven for half an hour at 450 degrees before he put it in the charcoal chimney. And he was able to get it ready to cook in half an hour in the charcoal chimney because the really super dense charcoal was already heated up enough. And he said he was putting his skewers on, he's putting his pieces of fatty pork on, and they were cooking so super fast he couldn't believe it. So another aspect of that was that he was using a really small conro and he had the bottom of it covered. In our experiment, we had exactly 1 pound of each one of these pieces of these types of charcoal. And with exactly 1 pound of charcoal, it wasn't enough to fill the conro grill that we were using, so we're not getting that radiant heat effect. And I think to really use the Tosa grade especially effectively, you need to have enough of it that the ceramic heats up and radiates heat back onto it, and that will help it to keep going. So this customer with his much smaller grill was only using a few pieces, but it's enough to cover the bottom of it and really get that effect from the ceramic of the way that it isolates the heat and pushes it up, but pushes it back towards the charcoal itself to help it keep lit and to really give you those high-powered results that people are looking for with Binchotan. So at the end of the day, if you're looking for some charcoal that's going to give you a really nice long burn time with the least amount of effort, grab some Ogatan. It's not going to burn as long as the higher grade stuff, but it's easy to get going and it burns for a long time without much effort. If you're looking for something that's kind of like dipping your toes into the water of really dense charcoal and those longer, hotter burn times, Shirozumi is a great way to go. It's a little bit easier to get going, but it will give you more of that high heat, long burn time that you'd expect from a denser charcoal. And it comes in a giant box, so that's kind of helpful, right? You buy it and you don't have to be coming back to buy, by the kilo. With the Tosa, this is for the traditionalist. This is for the person who wants the best possible results. It's for the person who's willing to mess and fuss and put it in the oven for a while and fan it. We started kind of fanning things in the middle of the experiment, and that definitely helped. I would say that's almost a requirement. If you see yakitori chefs, they're usually fanning their charcoal and moving stuff around and opening and closing the grills. If you want to use Tosa effectively, it's going to take a bit more effort, but those efforts will pay off in results, that you get longer, hotter burn times. And we weren't able to confirm that with the data that we were looking for. This is at this point still experiential data, which is quite valuable. And perhaps we'll run another experiment, control the variables a little bit differently, allow for more manipulation that would suit the charcoal we're using. But I think the results of this experiment really tell you about what kind of charcoal to use for what situation based on how much effort you're willing to put into it. So this video was meant to be a little bit more scientific, experimental data collection, but we've got another video, everything you need to know about yakitori grilling. And if you go and check that one out, you'll see about how to control the temperature, how to manipulate the charcoal to really get the best possible results. I believe it's got some stuff about the tare dipping sauce for the yakitori. Mike and Naoto are in there, and they are true masters with this sort of equipment. A little bit more how-to, it's a little bit more cooking-oriented, less sciencey, more experience, and how do you really get the most out of these tools? And happy grilling, everyone. Whoa, Jesus.